the passage of the said resolution in which I am the author of the said resolution, Mr. Speaker.
So are you ready for deliberation on the committee report?
For the
Mr.
deliberation, yes.
Mr.
Yes,
Speaker,
Mr. Speaker. I can answer questions that may be asked, Mr. Speaker. The vice chair of the subcommittees, I think, hey, the committee of basic higher education is present. They can also shed light on the proposed resolution that I principally authored. The vice chair, vice chair of the committee.
Mr. Speaker, may we respectfully recognize the Vice Chairman of the Committee of Basic Higher Technical Education.
The
MP Rasul
deputy
de
minority
Cruz.
floor leader is recognized.
okay. Mr. Speaker, for PR number 83, entitled Resolution Profoundly Requesting the Ministry of Basic Higher and Technical Education to highly consider for the inclusion in the curriculum of elementary and secondary education the life of the teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We have deliberated this in the committee, and we have a committee report that we recommend its approval without any amendment. So we fully accept the whole resolution of MP Paisalin Tago, and we are ready to answer queries if there are some, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the proposal.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of interpellation and debate on that particular
Yes, I will
resolution.
hear first the words of the
Mr.
proponent.
Speaker, with due respect to our majority floor leader, with this indulgence, before we open the period of interpellation and amendment, this representation wants to deliver simple sponsorship measures speech regarding why this resolution was filed. If you allow, Mr. Speaker, may I be allowed to render sponsorship
I
message?
will allow you, but please make it brief.
I will make it very, very brief. Ang resolution po ito na i-file, Mr. Speaker, dahil sa ating mga paaralan ngayon, nakikita ko hindi tinuturo yung the life, yung kabutihan o binigay na asal ng ating propeta Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We studied in Western education, Mr. Speaker. Mas alam pa natin yung life and teachings ni si Rizal kaysa life and teachings ng Prophet Muhammad. Tinuro sa atin, no limitanggiri, el polibusterismo, mas kabisado pa natin si Crisostomo, si Ibarra, sina Marcelo Lopez Haina, mga kasama ni Jose Rizal. Pero yung pinaka-basic na dapat natin malaman as a Muslim, as an Islam, yung life and teaching of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Pangalawa, the new institution, which is the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao, we are promoting moral governance. And the very, very basic that we can profound or we can inculcate moral governance within ourselves is to know more itong the life and teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because that is the very basic moral governance that we have to study. Ngayon, tinatalakay sa Kongreso dahil with due respect, mga kabataan ngayon hindi nila alam yung good morals and right conduct. Pabalikin dahil nung mga elementary tayo may good moral and right conduct. Ang teachings of life, teachings and the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the proper good moral and right conduct. Sundin po lang natin yan ang nararapat, good moral and right conduct. Sa ngayon, dapat, because tinatag natin ang Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. Kaya nung sinabi ko nung una, pinag-aralan natin si Rizal, pero hindi pa natin pinapag-aralan yung the life and teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Dapat po manatili sa ating curriculum ng ating mga kabataan ngayon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi ta'ala
May I
wabarakatuh.
clarify one question?
But before that,
Where-
Mr. Speaker,
yeah.
may I move to adopt the committee report number 44, Mr. Speakers, before we can start deliberating this.
There's a
particular
motion to
session.
adopt committee report number 44. Is there any second? There being no objection, committee report number 44 is adopted. What about the sponsorship speech of MP Tago? What is the action of the plenary?
Yes, may I request, Mr. Speaker, to be part of the records of the deliberation for today's session, Mr. Speaker. To the Secretary General, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretary General is directed to put on record, including the journals, the speech of MP Tago. MP Tago, may I ask one clarificatory question? Para madali na to. Where in the curriculum should we include the story and the life and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad? Is it in a religion class, in a history class, or what?
It is my humble suggestion, Mr. Speaker, that it should be another subject. It should not be incorporated in the history
religion?
class, or it should be an additional subject para yung maging broad ang kaalaman natin sa Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi
MP
wasallam.
Tan, you're raising your hand. I think you're agreeing to my question.
Just to elaborate on your question, Mr. Speaker. Sunod kami.
Can you please remove
Speaker.
your face mask so we can hear your voice loud and clear?
Mr. Speaker, is my voice loud and clear now? Thank you, Mr. Speaker and Majority Leader. I would like to relate to the question of the presiding officer, the Speaker of the day, the Deputy Speaker Omar Sema, about my personal experience on the teaching of the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When we were in high school at the Notre Dame of Holo for boys, my late mother was the president of the Parent Teachers Association, and one of the projects that they were able to accomplish is to teach the life of Prophet Muhammad, because then during theology class for Catholic students, the Muslim students were just roaming around the corridors and making noise. So it was offered, it was accepted by the administration of Notre Dame, and it was taught to us. It was taught in high school. So we had an equivalent of theology class. And I agree with the sponsorship speech of my good friend here, the Deputy Majority Leader, that the good basis for good morals, because Islam, we emulate the practice and teachings of Prophet Muhammad, his life, because it is a life full of virtues and good values. So I guess that is a good basis, rather than just, while history of our heroes in the past is very important, but it's more important to teach us the lessons of the Prophet Muhammad, about our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because it will be an investment in the hereafter, not only in this mortal world. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, yes, Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, may we call the following MPs: MP Cel Lorena, MP Zia, and MP Amir Mawali, and MP Romeo Salica, and MP Asparosman. In that order, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Lorena is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to manifest that I'd like to be a co-author of that resolution for believing that the intent of that resolution was really good for not only for all of us, but for our children and the children, our children's children. I'd like to share that even in a Catholic for good moral conduct as provided for in that curriculum. If a Catholic school would allow that, we are supposed to be a Bangsamoro autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao. And the hadith would clearly say that he is the principal model of all of us. So if that is the case, then I think we should support the resolution of our good deputy majority leader, and I would like to manifest that I am joining him as co-author if he permits. And I think the basis is clearly laid down, not only in our law, but clearly that is required for all of us, as mentioned by the Deputy Speaker Nabil Tan. The benefit is not only today, but it goes beyond our lifetime in this world. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
I would like to clarify from MP Lorena. You were saying private schools, not public schools.
Yes, even in the Ateneo de Zamboanga is a private school.
Yes,
But-
because no public money is in their teachings.
Yes, but this is part of a curricula, and I think the law provides under 11054 that we can even modify our curricular offering in the autonomous region in Muslim Mindanao as part of the recognition not only of our distinct character, distinct history, distinct culture, and distinct belief. In the preamble of 11054 state that in recognition of the Bangsamoro right to self-determination. When we say right to self-determination, we have the right to determine not only the socio-economic and political, but even our way of life. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Duly noted. MP, the Deputy Speaker is recognized. Deputy Speaker Adyong, followed by MP Mawalil.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is a very simple clarificatory questions I'd like to ask the sponsor. If he is welcome to accept these two clarificatory questions, Mr. Not the author, but the sponsor, the vice chair. Yes.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we are open for any questions.
Thank you, Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Before I ask the question, let me just share to you similar situation in Pulo. In Marawi City, Mr. Speaker, there was also a school there, a private school, which was founded by my late grandfather, Senator Dumuco Alonto. The name of the school is the Jamiatul Philippine Al Islamia. It actually teaches two subjects, Arabic subjects. One is an Arabic grammar and language, that is Islam A, and the second subject is Islam B, which is the life and teachings of Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I hope, because the issue of private schools was brought up by my good friend MP Lorena, I hope that we can also draw as inspiration from the curriculum that is being observed and practiced in this private school in Marawi City. Not only in Jamiatul Philippine Islamia, but all over Marawi City are schools who actually offer this Islamic curriculum, Mr. Speaker. I just want to ask the sponsor, since he is the chair of the Committee on Education, and I believe they have already under discussion with insofar as the education code is concerned, and having answered the earlier question, Mr. Speaker, that the committee on or assured the Parliament that the Committee on Education is highly recommending the inclusion of this curriculum, the life and works of Prophet Muhammad in the elementary and the high school curriculum. I would like to ask him, is the committee entertaining on introducing a specific curriculum in the education code, or would this be a separate action that would be taken by the Committee on Education, Mr. Speaker? That's a very simple question, Mr. Speaker.
Only one question.
Yeah, only one question.
Mr. Speaker, it's separate. This is a resolution proposed by our co-author, MP Tago. If this resolution passes, then immediately this resolution will be submitted to the MBHTE for consideration and for their guidance. But it would be very helpful also if it will be raised during the the committee proper for the education code. But definitely, since it's a document that's available for everybody, then I think most of the MPs will take note of the resolution and maybe make it part of the education code.
Follow-up question, MP
Not a
Adjunct?
follow-up question, Mr. Speaker, but a manifestation. I'm thankful for the reply of the Vice Chair of the Committee on Education. I'd just like to suggest that since the resolution has already been discussed by the Committee on Education, perhaps the committee itself already has an idea of the intent of the resolution, and perhaps by this time, I presume that the members of the Committee on Education and also the Vice Chair of the Committee on Education might perhaps take this into consideration so that the education code will have to absorb the contemplation of this resolution, so that we can finally act on the prayer of our good friend here, MP Tago, and also some of the co-authors who wishes to see that the Bangsamoro region, as part of its unique character, would have the right to propose, to teach the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam all over our schools in our territory, Mr. Speaker. So I would like to suggest that right this point in time, perhaps the Committee on Education, the Vice Chair, might as well discuss this and perhaps introduce the possible creation of a curriculum in the education code, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
MP Mawalil, you're recognized, followed by MP Saliga, MP Usman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to ask some few questions to the my fellow MP about the resolution. I'd like to go into the details. For the record, I'm supporting this resolution, and I would like to manifest my intention to be part of the authors. Mr. Speaker, gusto kong malaman kung paano yung setup ng MBHTE. Anong specific unit sa region ang gumagawa ng policy about curriculum? Ano yung relationship ng education natin sa BARM and education Department of Education national in terms of developing materials for the curriculum?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. Right now, Mr. Speaker, the MBHTE has this curriculum department, but most of the curriculum actually prior to the MBHTE are done through the national. Then we try to contextualize it pag umabot po sa ating region. Pero with what we have now is still hindi pa siya ganun ka integrated kasi yung basic education nandyan pa din, yung higher education nandyan pa din. But hopefully when the code passes, it might be a different structure. But right now, Mr. Speaker, kung makakapas po itong resolution na to, this will be moved by the MBHTE, yung Office of the Secretary or Office of the Minister, to the DGs so that they can inform yung current structure. Normally it's a bureau pagka nasa basic ed, tapos doon naman sa CHED to encourage yung mga gumagawa ng curriculum to include the life and experiences of our Prophet Muhammad. doon sa curriculum natin. So yun po yung setup for now, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Next question, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, gusto kong malaman yung extent ng participation ng MBHDE or the former DepEd arm doon sa sinasabi ng proponent ng pag-contextualize ng mga materials para sa curriculum. Hanggang saan po ba yung participation natin? Just to put context, kasi meron akong, I did some research on this. Yung tinatawag nilang quality assurance sa region, pinapadala sa national, and then tinatanong ko kung ano ba yung participation natin. Sometimes nalilimit na lang yung participation ng quality assurance natin, not more on the content eh. For example, previously ang participation is iniiwasan lang natin magkaroon ng pork sa mga books, textbook, or yung mga damit ng mga characters sa mga book ay hindi ay sensitive sa local context. So in this case, Mr. Speaker, tingin po ba ng proponent kaya with a very substantial na tingin nating content sa materials, whether in modules or yung textbook, kaya po ba natin mag-sway nung in terms of sa pag-develop ng materials? In this case, dito sa context ng resolution na to.
Mr. Speaker, yung initial stages po, medyo mahirap po yun. Pero recently, maskin pa yung DepEd arm, nakapag-produce na po sila ng tinatawag natin big books. Then most of these big books are contextualized. Ibig sabihin, develop na po siya based sa culture, pati sa religion dun sa lugar. So, kaya na po natin mag-produce dahil as early as sa ARM pa lang, nagpo-produce na tayo ng mga big books at may mga ganitong materials na tayo sa ating mga sa ating 5 provinces. So with this guidance, sa tingin ko mas makakapag-produce pa yung MBHTE natin ng mga materials related dito. So dati kasi lang tayo, limited tayo sa pag-contextualize lang, pag-edit out ng pork, pag-edit out ng kunyari kung predominantly Muslim yung school, magpadala tayo ng books na ang mga celebration is Christmas, so pinapalitan ng Ramadan. Pero yung with the skills that we have with the big books, we are actually producing local materials na, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you for that response, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my next question would be, siguro as the former Education Secretary ng ARM, I'd like to know kung, since we are talking about the basic education dito sa resolution na to, ilang subject areas meron tayo sa grade school and secondary education ngayon?
Yung sa for clarification lang, ang meron tayong K-12, Mr. Speaker,
Yes,
for
in
the
K-12.
basic.
Can we just wait for the chair of the Committee on Basic Higher Education to answer that question para mas clear and in the context of the farm?
I am not
Can
sure.
you ask another question? Kasi yan, nasa expertise na yan, nasa knowledge na yan ng Committee on Basic Higher
With
Education now.
due respect, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to know the details because if we're going to implement this.
Yeah, we understand. What I'm saying is that question should be properly addressed to the chair of the Committee on Basic Higher Education. You can ask another question.
Mr. Speaker, we can actually answer the question.
Yeah, but we are giving due credence to the chair of the Committee on Basic Higher and Technical Education. You can ask another question, MP Mawali. And then you can actually write your question, and maybe at the attendance of the chair of the committee, he can
I
read
have no
that.
further question, Mr. Speaker.
What?
No further questions.
Thank you. MP Saliga, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think sa panahon natin ngayon na nangangailangan tayo ng isang role model, no? Lalo na doon sa isinusulong na good governance. This resolution is a commendable response ng Parliament. Do may mga katanungan lang ako, Mr. Speaker. Like, ang application nito is sa elementary and high school.
Kwan po, it's a recommendation that requested that it will be, yes, elementary and secondary po. Yes, sir.
Will it also apply to all students, Mr. Speaker?
Hey, it's elementary and high school, so covered lahat.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, yun po yung request to cover it.
Regardless of the religion or religious belief.
Ang pagkaintindi ko po, Mr. Speaker, during our committee, Prophet Muhammad, yung life niya po is treated not just him as a religious figure, Mr. Speaker, but as a historical figure. So meron din po siyang mga nagawa regardless wala yung yung religious element. As a person, he had done a lot for the
That
whole
answers my
world.
question a while ago.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
So you may proceed, MP.
Yes, additional question, Mr. Speaker. Pagkakaalam ho natin sa MDHT natin, merong division or is a separate office for the madrasa education. Ano ho yung magiging relasyon nitong resolution na to doon sa office na yon, Mr. Speaker?
For Madaris Education, Mr. Speaker, right now, yung curriculum nila is tinuturo yung Arabic pati yung Islam. Then with this introduction, Mr. Speaker, mas madagdagan, mas ma-enhance lang or mas ma-improve lang yung pagturo sa buhay po ni Prophet Muhammad. Pero sa tingin ko hindi naman greatly ma-affect, kundi it will encourage more teachings about his life, Mr. Speaker.
Pwede ho bang malaman sa proponent, Mr. Speaker, if you can explain, hindi ho ito violation ng separation and church na provisions ng ating Constitution, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we believe this is a violation as we explained earlier, Mr. Speaker. Prophet Muhammad is a historical figure and yung mga feats niya po as a person is well recognized sa history books natin, pati sa mga sa mga articles about leadership. So this is not purely about religious context, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, lastly, Mr. Speaker, ang application nito, katulad ng binanggit ng proponent, is for the public elementary and high school. I think nabanggit na rin nung unang nagsalita na even in our private schools, meron din tayo mga Muslim students, ano? Yung binanggit kanina ni former ASEC Nabil Tan is a concrete example. Hindi ho ba natin pwede ring i-offer ito doon sa o i-require din ito doon sa mga private schools? Like of course we all know na private ito, but we will make it as mandatory para i-offer doon sa mga estudyante ng mga Muslims, lalo na doon sa mga Muslims, students sa mga private schools, Mr. Speaker.
The MBHTE can Mr. Speaker, can advise. Kasi yung basic wherefore and resolve clause po ng ating document is for the ministry to profoundly and highly consider the inclusion as part of the curriculum yung elementary and secondary. So they can advise yung mga private schools natin. All private schools naman under sa BARM are regulated by the BARM. So they can advise po.
Yes, as a last manifestation, Mr. Speaker, I think I am also looking at this on the context naman sa IP because while we do not believe hindi ho masyado malalim yung papakaunawa namin kay Prophet Muhammad and even sa Christian natin kay Christ and the other gods na nire-recognize ng ibang religion, but we are also looking maybe on a later na merong pagkilala din doon sa mga nagiging gabay na mga katutubo para talaga tugunan yung issue ng mai-promote yung sinasabi nating moral governance. Because while we do not, hindi naman namin sinasabi na ayaw namin sa ganito, but IPs have already their role model na baka pwedeng later masama doon sa as bilang additional na ng MPHT na dapat mapag-usapan dito magiging kabahagi ng curriculum. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. That would be a very welcome suggestion.
MP Osman, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the record, Mr. Speaker, this presentation fully support the resolution for the inclusion of such highly valued teaching of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But a similar question raised before by Honorable Deputy Speaker Rizia concerning the education code. I would like to ask Mr. Speaker if the committee consider, while I assume really because I read the draft of the education code, we have very, for all intent and purposes, the integration of the madrasa system in the BARM education code is really laudable. And I assume this resolution can be first treated as what's this, an enhancement of that code and an immediate demand for the immediate passing of the education code by this parliament. And also, Mr. Speaker, considering a while ago, there was also a questions of appropriating funds, public funds thereof. I think without the education code, again, the same question will arise as to the legality of appropriation public funds without for purposes of teaching religion, because teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam very broad. This is the hadith, the saying, the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, not only the history. So if we put the teaching of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the subject, we must have the education code that officially integrate the madrasa system in the educational system of the Bangsamoro. That is, I think, prejudicial to the intent. I mean, parang naunahan tayo ng resolution. Can we wait the immediate passing of the education code para wala ng problema ang MBHT considering the efforts and the resources doon sa ministry? Mag-study sila ngayon because of our resolution. Then mayroon silang education code, the forthcoming education code. Then mababago na naman. And again, similar, because of the education code, we can also ask or request the private schools and institutions to not necessarily mandatory on all their learners, but at least for the Muslim learners, they should include that curriculum and their private school curriculum. Without the education code, that is good only for the public school system. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
MP Bayitan Adil, I will recognize her first, Majority Floor
Yes,
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, to be followed by MP Eddie
The
Ali.
lady
the
from
Zoom.
Maguindanao and Deputy Minority.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, my concern is similar with the MP Adspar in relation to the education code, because the way I see it, this is not just a small resolution. It will really entail a lot of cost, effort, and time for the MBHT to really prepare about this. It's an entire overhauling of the curriculum, plus when you translate it into action, you will be changing all the materials, and even the teachers, they will be trained later on about the resolution, Mr. Speaker. So I'm thinking actually of the cost implication later on, and I do agree with MP Adspar that it's not part of the education code. We cannot really implement this fully, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
Let me manifest it also that I agree with the two.
Okay.
Yes,
MP
Majority
Ali,
Floor Leader.
MP Eddie Ali, Mr. Speaker, in the Zoom.
Who?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Mr. Majority Floor Leader. I just would like to make a very brief manifestation. I joined the principal author of PR number 83 in his manifestation that the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam be treated as a separate subject. Why do we ask that the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam be treated as a separate subject in order to have a substantial scope in the study of his life? Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best model of humankind, as mentioned by the other MPs, that the life that Prophet Muhammad does not only influence the Muslims, but the entire humankind. And I think giving it as a separate subject or treating it as a separate subject will give more knowledge to the students, especially in the elementary and high school. And the Sunnah and Hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the best human values that we can learn from. So I think in our agenda, in our agendum for moral governance, teaching the students, the pupils and students of the life of Prophet Muhammad will have an influence, will have an impact on the life. So as they grow up, they are guided with the Sunnah, they are guided with the Hadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And there is a, very briefly, Mr. Speaker, there was a survey conducted of who is the most influential person in the world. And number
may
one,
may you please wind up, because
yeah,
there are
I'm
other
winding up,
people.
Mr. Speaker. Yes, I'm winding up, Mr. Speaker. The research shows that Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is the most influential person in the world. With this manifestation, Mr. Speaker, I joined the principal author that really the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam be treated as a separate subject. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader.
MP Anayatin, I will recognize you, and then later MP Mujahid. That will be the last interpellation. I will give you each one question.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Good afternoon, everyone. I am a peace educator, and I welcome the inclusion in the curriculum of the lives and works of the Prophet. Why? Because most of us this time, our younger ones, are looking for a model. At ang nagiging model nila sino? Mga celebrities, mga artista, basketball players, singers, etc. Now, this is a great opportunity for us to put in place, putting the values of Islam, of Christianity, of other religious beliefs in our curriculum, because as a peace educator, we are teaching religions and peace at the postgraduate level. We touch on the lives of Jesus Christ, of the Prophet, and other saints. And we find no problem as far as funding is concerned. I'm teaching at the MSU and Cotabato City Polytechnic College. So we did not receive any prohibition to teach these life works of our prophets. So I support this resolution, and I would like to be one of the co-authors. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
MP Mujahid.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Just a simple manifestation, Mr. Speaker, that I also want to be part of the co-author if not the main principal of the author of this resolution, Mr. Speaker. And I very much thankful to MP Deputy Majority Leader Faisalin Tago for coming up with this kind of timely resolution. Rather, it is an undue resolution, Mr. Speaker, because ang tagal na natin sana gawin na ito as part of our curriculum in public schools, particularly in the areas of the Muslims. For now, Mr. Speaker, tulad naman ng nabanggit ng mga kasamahan po natin, kailangan natin ngayon magkaroon ng role model to our young generations. Yung medyo na haluan na o kaya naiba ng mga ugali ng ating mga kabataan, mga anak sa panahon na to, because of the lack of the good model that they learn. Tulad ng mga nabanggit ng mga kasamahan natin, they rather pattern after yung mga hindi karapat-dapat na talagang tularan ng mga anak po natin. Even in the Holy Quran, Mr. Speaker, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, "Laqad kana lakum fi Rasulillahi uswatun hasana." Hindi lang po ito sa mga kabataan, kundi sa atin po lahat. Ibig sabihin po nito, sabi ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sa Suratul Hajjab, verse 21, "And indeed, in the messenger of Allah, Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you have a good example to follow for him who hopes in the meeting with Allah in the last day and remembers Allah much." So, isa rin na nabanggit ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "Wa innaka la'ala khuluqin azim." And indeed, you are a great moral character. Actually, bukod po sa mga nabanggit ng Quran, may nabanggit din Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, "Ma atakumur rasulu fakhuduhu wa ma nahakum anhu fantahu." Whatever the messenger has given you, you take it, and whatever has forbidden you, you have to refrain from it. So mas lalo po tayo talagang inutusan ng Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Isa sa mga non-Muslim who wrote a book, the name the great leader of the world, the Prophet Muhammad, in the person of Michael Hart, siya po ang number 1 na leader nakasaad sa book po ni Michael Hart. As such, Mr. Speaker, I would like to suggest, tulad din ng mga nasabi natin, it should be part of our educational code, and be part also yung the treaty of or the Medina Caravan or the Medina Treaty, which this treaty, Mr. Speaker, napakarami pong mga Muslim hindi po natin alam kung ano pong nangyari ito sa mga provisions na to. Yung treaty between the Muslims and Medina and the Muslim Makkah, and the Muslim between the Muslims and the Jew and the Muslim and the Christian. So isa po dapat ito isali po natin, Mr. Speaker. And finally, Mr. Speaker, I just want to be assured or to have an assurance that our ulama be part of preparing the curriculum in this matter, and by
That would
teaching
be
it
taken
also
in
the
another
ulama,
matter.
Mr. Speaker.
MP
Yes.
Dipatuan, you are
MP
recognized.
Patuan and the minority floor leader will be the last.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader, for giving me this opportunity. I want to manifest my strong support to the immediate adoption and passage of this resolution by also signifying my intention to insist to my brother, the Deputy Speaker, Attorney Faisal Tago, to consider me as one of the co-author of this resolution. I would like to express my disagreement to my other fellow MPs with regards to the immediate passage of this resolution, because I believe that though it will be an addition to the current curriculum of MBHTE, but it will not drastically alter the curriculum in the MBHTE. So if we are going to wait for the passage of the education code, it may unnecessarily delay the teachings of the life of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the curriculum of our schools. So that is my manifestation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Majority Floor Leader?
Yes, the last will be the Minority Floor Leader, MP Liza Alamia.
MP, the Minority Floor Leader is recognized. Please make it very, very brief, ma'am.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Majority Floor Leader, this is very short. I would just like to manifest that the Ateneo de Zamboanga University, there is one specific subject which is entitled The Life and Teachings of Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. That means even in the private schools and in the Catholic schools, the life of the prophet is being taught as a human being, as a person, because he is a hero, just like even better than the heroes that we study in our school. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this resolution of MP Paisal Intago and would like to be one of the co-authors, and also would like to manifest the same manifestation that was made earlier, that this will not drastically change the curriculum of the basic and secondary education in the BARM, because this will just be incorporated as one of the topics in the current subjects in our education, basic education and high school, the high school curriculum. So, Mr. Speaker, I support this resolution, and this should be immediately approved so that this can be considered by the Committee on the Basic Higher and Technical Education for incorporation in the Bangsamoro Education Code. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Floor
Yes,
Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of debate and interpellation, Mr. Speaker.
The period of interpellation is now terminated.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other proposed amendments, unless there is, I move for the approval and adoption of this. Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of amendment, Mr. Speaker.
The period of amendment is open.
May
I
we-
will recognize the Deputy Speaker.
Yes,
Is
may
that
we
a proposed
respectfully
amendment?
recognize MP Deputy Speaker Hatim Ilasan to be followed by MP.
Yeah, the Deputy Speaker Hassan is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. I would like to pose an amendment that.
Can you please remove your
Yes, sorry.
face mask?
I'd like to propose amendment to the fact that let's have it what they call the history of the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the other prophets of Islam. Alam po ninyo, when I was still very young, there is a Malay book, Kitab Malayo, na tinatawag natin. Ang title noon is Kisasul Anbiya. Ang ibig sabihin, History of the Prophets.
Yeah. May I now hear the position of the
pinag-aaralan yan.
proponent?
So, ibig sabihin that, and other Islam and other prophets of Islam. So
We will hear the
I propose
position
the
of the
amendment
proponent.
that the history of the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and other prophets.
Yes,
of
we will
Islam.
hear the proponent, sir. We will hear the proponent if he agrees or not.
Mr. Speaker, the idea is really good, Mr. Speaker. But the discussion during the committee level, it only evolved in the life of the Prophet Muhammad, because he is also a historical figure. Then there are stories that can also encourage interfaith dialogues because of his life during in Medina. It would be beyond me to add add more other profits for the meantime.
MBHTE can decide.
So, yes, we cannot.
The
We cannot.
MBHTE can decide. The MBHTE can decide on this matter. If they decide to adopt the suggestion of the Deputy Speaker, they can do so.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but that would definitely be different from what was discussed by the committee.
Yeah,
and
this resolution is specific
Yes.
to the life of the Prophet
Yes,
Muhammad.
Mr. Speaker.
But the MBHTE can adopt the proposal of the Deputy Speaker.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, but as a vice
your
chair
answer is
and
no.
limitations. Yes,
Your
Mr.
answer is
Chair,
no.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Say it straight.
Yes, MP Baintanan Patuan, the Deputy Minority Pro.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Speaker. Building on the interpellation earlier, and as emphasized by the author that this resolution.
Madam Minority Floor Leader, can you please remove your face shield?
Okay, Mr. Speaker, my proposed amendment, since the author articulated that it is a separate subject, my proposed amendment, Mr. Speaker, is to include the word after the word curriculum as a subject. As a subject. To make it clear that it's really a subject.
Yes, what is
and
the
not just a topic among the subjects.
Does the proponent agree or disagree to the proposed amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Secretariat is directed to take note of the proposed amendment.
MP Satar, Mr. Speaker.
MP
Thank
Satar,
you.
you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would propose an amendment for the title as well as to the last paragraph.
Can you please remove your face mask?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to propose an amendment on the title of the proposed resolution number 83, as well as the concluding sentence, Mr. Speaker. It is said that the title is Resolution Profoundly Requesting the Ministry of Basic Higher and Technical Education to highly consider for the inclusion in the curriculum of elementary and secondary education the life and teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And my proposed suggestion is that, Mr. Speaker, not only the elementary and secondary, but to include the tertiary education. Bakit po? Dahil ang history, the life and the teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam would not stop on the high school. In fact, in the elementary level and secondary, ang tawag po diyan sa madrasa is only sira. Whereas pag nasa higher education, ang tawag diyan is tarikh, to include the life and even teachings of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. At napakalawak din po kung teachings ang pag-uusapan. Hindi lang the life and the history, but to include the ahadith of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Therefore, my suggestion is that resolution profoundly requesting the Ministry of Basic, Higher and Technical Education to highly consider for the inclusion in the curriculum of elementary, secondary, and tertiary education the life and teachings of the Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
What is the pleasure of the proponent?
I agree, Mr. Speaker. Anyway, it is the MBHT that will implement this proposed resolution, subject to the study of the MBHT.
Yes.
But
So-
I am agreeable to the amendment, Mr.
So
Speaker.
you will agree to the amendment. The Secretariat is directed
Thank you,
to take
Mr.
note.
Speaker.
If there are no more proposed amendment, I will now ask the
Yes, MP Zia Alonto. Zia Alonto and MP.
Deputy Speaker and MP Osman are recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I think the best way to serve the intention of this resolution is to incorporate this in the education code. Mr. Speaker, if it's possible that I would include one resolve clause in the resolution that this resolution be incorporated as a proposal be incorporated in the education code as a separate subject that was earlier.
1 minute suspension. MP Usman, what is your session resume?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Can you go direct to the point?
Yeah, my amendments is not only, Mr. Speaker, not only requesting the ministry, but in further consideration, but really mandating. This Parliament will mandate the Ministry of Higher and Basic Education to include that subject as part of the curriculum in the elementary, secondary, and tertiary education. That's all, Mr. Speaker. Thank you very much.
What is the pleasure of the proponent?
Accepted, Mr. Speaker. We accept that the request
The
be
Secretariat is directed
amended to mandate, Mr. Speaker.
indicate that the MHD is mandated to include. Mandated.
Mandating. Resolution profoundly mandating the
Mandating. If there are no more amendments, I ask the majority.
Mr. Speaker.
Yes, MP May Sara Latif.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move that the word technical education be also included because we also have a technical vocational school curriculum or school. So it's not just the tertiary, but also the tech box students that also need curriculum or separate subject for the life and teachings of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And maybe we should remove the word profoundly because the word mandating and profoundly.
You should move for removal of the word profoundly.
Yes.
You should move for removal of the word profoundly.
I move, Mr. Chair, that we remove the word profoundly and include the word also tertiary education, technical education, curriculum of the technical education. That's all, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Majority Floor Leader, can you now move for the
Yes, but
termination
before
of the
the Mr. Speaker, may we request the Secretary General to include us, MP Nabil Tan and MP Lanang Ali Jr. as
all
the
of those
co-author.
interested to
Co-author of this
to sponsor the resolution, you can now include your name.
And MP Joe Lorena also. May we request the MPs to submit the list of names, their names to the Secretary General.
Now, what is now the pleasure of the majority?
I move to close the period of amendment, Mr. Speaker, and I further move for the approval and adoption. Now, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the next committee report number 45, considering that MPS.
Approve pa.
Yes, I move for the approval and adoption of the proposed resolution number 44.
Is there any second?
Second.
There being no objection, proposed resolution number
44.
44 is hereby approved and adopted on the plenary of the Bangsamoro Transition Authority.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the next item. We are on the committee report number 45. Considering that MP Narciso Coyoique is not physically around, Mr. Speaker, may I move to defer the consideration of
Including
this?
committee report number 47.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
So this will be deferred?
Hindi, MP, we will recognize MP Rasul Mitmog on this particular resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Is he authorized? The authors are...
Yes, he is the vice chairman of the committee on higher and technical education, Mr. Speaker.
But the authors are MP Susana Anayatin and MP Iqbal.
Narciso Coyoique. Narciso
This is a
Coyoique.
committee resolution?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
It should be indicated here. If this is a committee resolution, this should have been indicated here that this is a committee resolution.
Mr. Speaker, this is a proposed resolution from a particular MP, and then it is referred to the Committee on Basic, Higher and Technical Education, Mr. Speaker. And we are on number 3, Mr. Speaker. That is the reason why, Mr. Speaker, MP Narciso Coyoique is not around and not physically around, so he cannot defend this.
Yes.
Speaker. So this is the reason why, Mr. Speaker, I move to defer this particular resolution.
Proposed committee report number 45.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
The committee report number 45 is held in abeyance in the meantime.
Yes, we are proceed to number 4, Mr. Speaker, committee report number 47. Resolution calling for the Commission on Higher Education National to expedite the process of conversion of the Cotabato City State Polytechnic College into a state university. And MP Anayatin is physically present, so we may also recognize him together with the Vice Chairman of the Committee on Basic and
So
Higher
you will continue with this?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Okay, we proceed.
MP yes, MP Rasul Mitmog, Mr. Speaker, may we respectfully recognize.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, this is committee report number 47. The Committee on Basic Higher Technical Education, to which was referred, PR number 193, a resolution calling for the appropriate government agencies to expedite the process on conversion of the Cotabato City Polytechnic College into a state university. We have a few corrections on this, Mr. Speaker. One, we corrected the misspelled word expedite from the title. And also, we replaced the phrase appropriate government agencies with Commission on Higher Education, CHED National, from the title to read as follows. A resolution calling for the Commission on Higher Education, CHED, to expedite the process of conversion of the Cotabato City State Polytechnic College into a state university. The BTA PR number 193 is attached here, and that's our committee report, Mr. Speaker.
What is the pleasure of the majority floor leader?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to adopt the committee report number 45, Mr. Speaker.
The committee report number 47 is hereby adopted.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to open the period of debate and interpellation on this particular resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, the lady from Maguindanao is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I understand that this resolution was filed way back last year, and I think there are already some developments on this. May we request the proponent to give us updates on what have been done so far from the time that it was filed until now, Mr. Speaker, but because this resolution might not be relevant anymore.
Yeah, that's what I am suggesting right now, that we should now move to adopt this resolution.
Mr. Speaker, my proposal is to hear first the updates about this resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Who will
Yes,
make
may we
the adoption?
The proponent, Mr. Speaker.
The proponent is
Susana Nayatin.
given the floor.
Yes. MP Rasulbit po, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, the latest update is we are actually nearing the goal to have CCSPC as a university with a university status. Mr. Speaker, I also sit as a board of the CCSPC, and the latest update was they needed to check on some facilities of the CCSPC, and it's done last year. And the recent congressional hearings, we are hearing positive news that it can really be achieved this year. So hopefully it will be achieved in a few days. So with this resolution, it will encourage more the Senate and the Congress to immediately pass the resolution.
Majority Floor Leader, may this chair propose move for the adoption of this resolution
Yes,
immediately
Mr.
and
Speaker.
go away with the interpellation and amendment?
Actually, that's the premise of my interpellation, Mr. Speaker, that given that updates, I move that the period of interpellation be closed.
Space. Yes, Mr.
Majority
Speaker.
Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I am. There is a move. But before that, Mr. Speaker, there is a privileged speech to Susana Nayatin as one of the main proponent, Mr. Speaker. May we give?
May we hear from the lady from Maguinda, Dalikan, Dato Udin Sinswat. Make it brief, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, Majority Floor Leader. The conversion of the Cotabato City State Polytechnic College into a university is long awaited. And this time, as reported, the requirements has been submitted by the concerned school for its conversion into a regular university.
State university.
Regular state university. And therefore, there are lots of potentials for the students and faculty as well to upgrade the quality of education, which is very much vital in the formation of our Bangsamoro youth. And therefore, we very much welcome the approval of this resolution, and I hope we can forward this immediately to the leadership of the CCSPC for them to forward as well to the Commission on Higher Education. So thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you to those who supported this resolution, and wassalam everyone.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move to close the period of debate and interpellation, Mr. Speaker, and further move for the approval, the immediate approval and adoption of the same resolution, Mr. Speaker.
The period of interpellation and debate is hereby terminated, and the motion for approval of this resolution is now on the table. Any second? There being no objection, the resolution number 193 is hereby approved and adopted in plenary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the business for the day. We are on the proposed resolution 376 and 378. This is on the resolution relating to the passing of Member of Parliament and Deputy Chief Minister Abdul Raziz Akrin. I therefore move, and I move for consolidation of the two resolutions, Mr. Speaker, and I further move for the immediate adoption of the same, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, MP Mujahid.
Yes, MP Mujahid.
Mr. Speaker, I just want to be part of the co-author of the resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, this will be consolidated. There is a move to consolidate the two proposed resolutions. Any second? There being no objection, the Secretary General is ordered to consolidate the two resolutions. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I move for the immediate adoption of this consolidated.
Subject to style.
Subject to style, Mr. Speaker.
There's a motion to adopt the two resolutions, the consolidated resolutions subject to style. It's been seconded. There being no objection, the same is hereby approved and adopted by the BTA in plenary. Majority Floor Leader.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to propose resolution 292. Since the chairman of the Committee on Agriculture, Fisheries, and Agrarian Forest not physically around, Mr. Speaker, I move to defer the consideration of this
Proposed resolution number 292 is hereby deferred to a further date.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, we proceed to the next business for the day. This is in relation to proposed resolution number 320. Resolution recognizing the International Day of Girl, Child, and supporting the advancement of girls' rights in the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao. This has been long overdue resolution, Mr. Speaker, and after consideration with MP Raisa Dajuri, she support the immediate adoption and approval of this proposed resolution, Mr. Speaker.
Which resolution?
Proposed resolution number 320. Yes, this is the International Day of Girl Child, Mr. Speaker, which has been moved to the business for the day.
If there are no questions, we can move for the adoption of
Yes,
this
Mr.
resolution.
Speaker. This is a long of the old resolution, Mr. Speaker. MP.
Did somebody move for the adoption already?
Who is the author of it's MP Bainon Caron?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. She's
She's around.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, just want to manifest that I want to be a co-author of this resolution.
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Motion to adopt, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I move to adopt the.
There's a motion to adopt proposed resolution 320. Is there any second?
Second.
There being no objection, the same is hereby approved and adopted by the PTA in plenary.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, there being no other agenda in the order of the business, Mr. Speaker, I move to adjourn this session, Mr. Speaker.
Session is adjourned until tomorrow, 1 o'clock in the afternoon.
Hello, Sis Mai. Sis Mai, nag-leave na mo rin magtoy.